Hello everyone. Welcome to session 2, Career Connect Washington, a national recognition and local impact. My name is Vicki Bogenberger, and I serve as a member of the STEM Foundation Board of Directors. I'm honored to be a part of this event and especially looking forward to this session. Career Connect Washington and your work you're doing both strategically and with kids is a personal passion of mine, and I'm honored to be here with you. I've supported, being a member of the foundation, I've supported Career Connect Washington and traveled to Olympia many times, talking to our political leaders about the critical legislation necessary to deliver this innovative strategy to our region. So this panel today for me is sort of like a dream come true, and I'm very excited to talk to you. In this session, we look forward to highlighting the Career Connect Washington strategy, how it has gained national recognition, and to hear from a local teacher about the benefits for our students. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists, and then I'll say a few words about them, and then let them do some brief introductions about some of the things they're working on. First of all, Maud Dodden is here, the executive leader for Career Connect Washington. Welcome, Maud. Also, Abigail, I'm glad you're here. And then Abigail Smith, would you prefer me to call you Abby or Abigail?
I tend to go by Abby.
Okay, well, Abby is here with us. She's a partner with Bain & Company. So thank you, Abigail, for being with us. And then Kenton Alford is a CTE teacher at Chiawana High School in Pasco. So welcome, Kenton. As I mentioned, Maud Dodden is the executive leader of Career Connect Washington. She was selected by Governor Inslee to lead Career Connect Washington, which successfully passed legislation and state funding in the spring of 2019, and to implement the 10-year strategic plan for building a statewide career-connected learning and apprenticeship system in Washington State. The idea of that job and the immensity of it impresses me just by saying the words, Maud. As the executive leader of Career Connect Washington, Maud works with business leaders, national experts, labor leaders, educators, parents, and students to utilize state and private resources to enable every Washington student an opportunity to have multiple pathways to college-level learning, including a career through work-based learning experiences such as apprenticeships. Prior to leading Career Connect Washington, Maud served as president and CEO of the Seattle Metro Chamber of Commerce. She is chair of the Washington Student Achievement Council, CEO of Seattle Northwest Securities Corporation, deputy mayor of the city of Seattle, chief financial officer of the Port of Seattle, and vice president for public finance investment banking at Lehman Brothers. She currently chairs the board of United Way of King County and of the Nature Conservancy of Washington chapter. Welcome again, Maud. We're glad you're here. Abigail Smith is a partner with Bain & Company. Abby is a partner in Bain's San Francisco office with over 15 years of management consulting experience. She is a core leader in Bain's global social impact education practice, advising education clients on a range of topics, including strategy, performance improvement, and change management. Abby is the co-author of Taking Flight, How to Maximize the Potential of Career-Connected Learning, and also Making the Leap, How to Take the Promise of Career-Connected Learning to Scale, Bain's latest reports on career-connected learning. Prior to joining Bain, she was a high school math teacher at a large urban public school. Thank you for sharing your valuable time, Abby, with us today. And last but not least, because certainly this is the guy making it all happen with kids, is Kenton. Kenton Alford is a CTE teacher at Chiawana High School in Pasco. He obtained his career and technical education certificate from Central Washington University in 2014 and has been teaching robotics and computer-aided design for the past 8 years at Chiawana High School in Pasco. He's also a freshman STEM teacher on an integrated team with science and an English teacher. Prior to that, he was the student intervention supervisor for 3 years, implementing and supervising innovation programs to help students graduate. Prior to working in education, Kenton earned his bachelor's degree in chemistry from Central Washington University and his master's degree in chemistry from WSU. He began his career as a research scientist at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in 1997. His major research field, I can barely say these things, it's so impressive to me, Kenton. His major research field involves surface modification and characterization of carbon fiber and silica-based matrices to enhance the chemical and physical properties. Wow, which resulted in the issuance of 3 U.S. patents. In 2004, Kenton moved to work at Battelle Toxicology Northwest facilities for 6 years in research and development related operations, performed chemical and engineering analysis in support of inhalation toxicology studies. Additionally, Kenton has coached high school football, basketball, and softball for the past 21 years in the Pasco School District. Thank you, Kenton, for being with us today. As you can see, this is an incredibly talented panel of folks, from the strategy of what are we doing to career-connected learning, to the proofs and research about how can we learn from what's going on nationally and across the globe in the best practices of connected learning, and how do we take that and apply that to the kids in schools today. So I am just so honored to be part of their part of this discussion with you. And first I'm going to ask Maude if you would start off by telling us a little bit about the creation of Career Connect Washington and its goals and its inspiration for our youth.
Well, thanks so much, Vicki, and great to see the other panelists. Abby, nice to see you. Abby's been an amazing partner in helping us design and think about Career Connect, so much appreciation to Bain. And can't wait to hear from our educator on the panel about how we could do this better, differently. We're always looking for ways to make it work for people in the field, which is where the magic happens, as we like to say. This came about because there was really 2 frustrations that were going on, I think, in the state. One, that we had a huge amount of jobs available for young people that we were filling with people from outside the state of Washington. And these were largely, well, they were across the board, but mainly technology jobs, but other jobs as well. And employers were increasingly saying, gee, we want to hire Washington students for these jobs, but we just can't find the talent. And on the flip side, we saw that only 40% of our young people were getting past high school to get a credential or a degree. And we know the earnings power that means. It just means a huge amount for those families. So the governor, I think, was observing this, and eventually, with some persuasion from those of us in the state, decided to lead a trip to Switzerland that involved business leaders, educators, labor leaders, nonprofit leaders, to look at the Swiss apprenticeship model. And it really did inspire everyone on the trip to make a big commitment towards, let's do this thing in Washington State. Now, we have all kinds of building blocks. This is not about replacing anything that we have here. We have a great career and technical education system, a great set of skill centers, great community and technical college system and 4-year system, and so on. But the gap that existed that made it so challenging was between trying to find the partnerships between educators and employers, and really keeping the curriculum totally current for students so that they could attain these amazing jobs that are in our state. And those jobs, by the way, are not in any single isolated part of our state. They're really spread across the entire state of Washington. There's almost no place that you can't find that there is a posting for medical job and a technology job, just for starters, but many others in addition. So that was kind of the origin. And on that trip, the governor did ask me if I would leave the chamber and do this work. Now, why did he ask me? It's because I was deeply involved with businesses. And honestly, this thing does not really work unless you have that employer connection, because that's where students get this amazing experience. And you have to have the employer buy in at the front end to actually participate. So So I'll pause there because that's a lot to digest. But that is the original start. I will add one other thing, which is we were lucky enough to have some philanthropists on that trip to Switzerland who then asked all of us thought we should do a strategy and figure out how do we build on the great things that are happening and make it connect into a navigable system and approach for students. And that's essentially the work that we did in 2018 that culminated in legislation in 2019. So I'm happy to delve into that, but that's a good recap of the origin story.
Thank you so much, Maude. And that, that's what I love about the idea of Career Connect Washington is this public-private partnership around doing the right thing for kids and our future workforce. That's the key to secret sauce, I think, to making it work, but easier said than done, I'm sure. I turn now to Abby. Abby, I'm honored, as I said, to have you join us here today, and just very curious to learn more about the groundbreaking reports that you've authored and the work that Bain and Company's done. Again, the name of the reports, I'll just put these here, and they're also there's going to be a link to these reports put in the chat box for those that are interested. The report names are Taking Flight, How to Maximize the Potential of Career-Connected Learning, and the other one is Making the Leap, How to Take the Promise of Career-Connected Learning to Scale. So Abby, could you tell us a little bit more about these reports and provide an overview of the findings and why Career Connect Washington is a national model of success?
Yeah, and Vicki, thank you so much for having us. It's really lovely to be here with both Kenton and Maude, who is a dear friend and someone I've gotten to learn so much from for many years now. So I feel really lucky to be here with her in particular. So what I would say if I just sort of pull back a little bit around why this conversation is happening at all, it's because we're living through a really tumultuous time where technology is changing everything. It's changing how we live, it's changing how we learn, it's changing how we work. And it's changing our jobs, right? So somewhere around, if we look worldwide, somewhere around 1 billion jobs are going to be transformed by technology over the next 10 years. And that's not happening at some sort of distant Jetsons point in the future. It's happening right now. And the narrative around that is generally pretty negative, right? So we hear a lot about the robots that are eating our jobs, and there's a lot of worry and fear about that. But again, when we look at the data, we see a great deal of cause for hope and optimism, because while there are some jobs that are going away, there are more jobs actually that are being created, and those jobs tend to be better jobs. They're more interesting, they require high order skills, and they pay better. So there's excitement there, but our existing systems that are supposed to be able to prepare people for the work of the future haven't yet caught up, right? So we have a misalignment as a society between the systems that exist to prepare students, young people, for jobs and those jobs. And it's not just, again, the existing systems, and by that I mean the education systems, because in this country, the path to a good job has always been, finishing K-12 and going on to a higher education. That's what we've told people, and that's what we firmly believe, and that's what the data in the past has always showed us. But our employers are also not doing what they need to do always to engage with those systems. So again, we have a misfire. We've got employers who aren't able to find people for those higher order jobs, and we've got people who aren't able to make a living wage, right? And then we also see massive disparities in who is getting those jobs, and those disparities tend to fall along the lines of historical inequities. So we've got a problem, right? And we have a strong belief at Bain from the work that we've done across the country, and from learning from frankly learning from the work that Maude and so many others have done in the state of Washington. We have a firm belief that career-connected learning needs to be a big part of that solution, and that there's a lot of excitement and momentum that we see across the country. And I've had the the opportunity to work deeply with Maud and so many others in Washington State, but also in places like New York and Colorado and Dallas and DC. And I've seen all the different ways that people have, the different states and cities, municipalities have gone about addressing this. It's fascinating to see the differences in those. And we've done our best to capture those lessons in those reports that you mentioned. But again, those reports are built on the work that we've done with leaders like Maud and others.
Thank you. Thanks, Abby. And now I'm going to turn to Kenton. As a former industry professional and now as a teacher at the largest high school in Washington State, Chiawana High School in Pasco, could you please share a profile of the students that you teach each day, the challenges they face, and some of the barriers they must overcome to find their way into these high-demand, high-paying jobs in the Mid-Columbia region and then the States?
Yeah, sure. We are relatively large. We have about 3,100 students right now that are enrolled at Chiawana High School. Our sister school, Pasco High, is the sixth largest school in the state of Washington. There are about 2,400 students. And we have, as far as the population goes, we have about 2/3 of our students are minorities, right? They're either Hispanic or Latino for the most part. And they also, many of our students, about 75% of our students, receive free or reduced lunch, right, due to income levels. So there's a lot of barriers there. In addition to that, we also have about 75% of our students are second language learners, meaning that English is not necessarily their primary language at home. So that's another barrier that we have at the school, with just talking to students and making sure that they understand what it is that we're talking about. The other one is that we have students that will be the first in their families to graduate. Many will be the first ones to attend post-secondary opportunities. So all these challenges are things that we need to make sure we have things in place to aid students after graduations, providing them resources for careers that may involve additional schooling, whether that be trade school, college or university. We just need to make sure we have those in place. In addition to that, we also need to have that they know that they can earn certificates, right, and find those trainings while they're either in high school or when they get out of high school, whether that be through internships or allowing students to go to some of these different locations. We have the Hanford site that's out there. We were actually able to take some of our students, our freshman students, out there last week to the Hammer facility, and they got a chance to meet with some of those individuals and talk to them about some of the different careers that are out there. But yeah, that's the main one. But like I said, there are some challenges, there's some barriers, but we're working through them.
Absolutely. Thanks for painting that picture. And can you get some insights, Kenton, from your experiences at how important career-connected learning opportunities are into helping these kids? And what's the impact of having adult volunteers with students as mentors and role models and internships?
Right. Yeah. Well, something my dad used to tell me was, you don't know what you don't know. And I used to talk to my dad and look at him and go, well, of course. I mean, that makes sense. Of course, I don't know what I don't know. But it wasn't until I got a little bit older where I kind of understood what that meant. And that was, I was 18. I got called down to the counselor's office, and I was a little nervous because I was like, I didn't think I did anything wrong. But the counselor came, Wayne Jackson, told me, hey, there's this internship possibility out at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory if you're interested in it. And I said, okay, well, what is it? What does that mean? And so we kind of went through it and explained it. And so I figured, worst case scenario, I can go ahead and apply and I don't get it, right? I'm not out anything. But he had told me, he goes, hey, do you want to go into engineering? And I said, I don't know. What's engineering, right? Because I didn't know what that was. I knew of two different things of engineers. I knew that engineers worked outside, and I know I didn't want to do that. And the only other engineers I knew was somebody that worked on a train, right in the back of a train. And so that was my understanding of what an engineer was. And so I said, I don't think I want to be an engineer, even though I loved math, right? Math was one of the things that I loved. but I didn't know any different. And so that wasn't something that I was actually interested in. And so we as educators have to understand that a lot of these kids, especially ones that don't have a lot of the support at home or don't know as much in regards to people that are doing some of the, we'll call them higher tech type of jobs, that they need to get exposed to these activities, right? And we need to make sure that we take out that general student misconceptions about the types of jobs that are high paying that you can still get without a college degree, right? And you can go and become an electrician, you can become a pipe fitter. Those are very good paying jobs, and there's nothing wrong with those, right? A lot of times there's this misconception that, oh, that's a different tier type of job. But if the end goal is to provide for yourself and your family, and it's something that you enjoy doing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So we have to make sure that we can lower that threshold. And sometimes that threshold is also a financial burden with some of our students. Like I said, we have 70% of our students that are free and reduced lunch. So being able to afford to go to some of these different trainings is an issue as well.
Oh, that's fascinating, Kenton. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, I could talk to you all forever, and we have such a short amount of time. Somehow, I've asked you in a few minutes to take, years of work and encapsulate it. So thank you for your comments. I'm going to move now to questions. I'll let them out. I'd like this to be a dialogue, so feel free. I'll address the question to one member of the panel, but if any of you have thoughts, and I'm sure you do, I'd welcome your participation. But Maud, I'd first like to just, you've been at this now for 3 years, which is a short amount of time when you're talking about the iceberg you're trying to move. But can you share a little bit about what your successes have been, what you've learned, and what are some of the challenges?
Thank you. Yeah, there's been so many lessons learned. It's not even funny. But honestly, the things that we observed when we went around and talked to like 3,000 people in 2018 about this really were the insights we needed to drive this. I mean, you mentioned, Vicki, the magic, I think you said, of the employer engagement. That was very critical. What can employers get on board with? What do they want to pay for? What do they not want to pay for? How do they want to be engaged? All those lessons learned, very, very helpful. Also, the idea that nothing could be implemented from the state down. Honestly, we have a state framework, which is a 3-step learning continuum: explore, prep, and launch. And it grows in sophistication as you go up that continuum, launch being the most sophisticated, and kind of like an apprenticeship, it includes registered apprenticeship. And the criticality of making sure there was a common vocabulary was sort of lesson number 2, because, there's great, like I said before, great CTE programs and skill centers programs and so on. But if you're a parent or a student, you don't necessarily know how to judge the quality or the caliber of those programs, or understand exactly where does that lead me to next. And so having a continuum, having a progression, having a common vocabulary that's shared across the state was kind of lesson number 2, to make it navigable and approachable for our students and their families. Lesson number 3, to really get this to resonate and to really work, it took educators like Kenton getting on board and actually participating and seeing this as an opportunity to enrich what they were currently doing. So the way that we addressed that was to essentially create this state framework and a funding mechanism, but all of the grants that we distribute are to people like Kenton across the state, or it could be a chamber of commerce that's interested, or it could be a nonprofit that's interested in building a program. And it's designed to bring educators and employers together to design curriculum that the educators obviously contribute. That's not done by the program builder, but it takes the load off both educators and employers to actually get the work done. And by doing it that way, so the third thing, I guess, is that idea of local implementation, grassroots implementation, close to the community where the economic opportunity resides. and where the teachers, the parents, the nonprofit leadership knows the students too, and knows how to connect with students, because this is the critical thing, is to reach every student, not to just reach a portion of our student body. And we know that if you look at our outcomes, we tend to be very, very good at educating some students, but certainly not all students. And so this is really intended to be something that can really overcome some of the challenges that have existed in our education system. All of that has meant that there's been a huge amount of program building that's occurred. We've actually unleashed what I think is a lot of enthusiasm and energy about doing more of this. And that energy is fueled by employer interest and by parent and student interest. Who, when you say to a student, look, you can get a learning experience that is an on-the-job paid experience aligned with a great classroom experience that leads you into a real job if you want to have that job, or it leads you into further education at the post-secondary level. Pretty much, we've never found a student or a parent that doesn't say, sign me up. We love that idea. And it can be in IT, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. And as you said so well, it can be in the trades. The trades are wonderful in terms of a lifelong occupation, if that's your thing. But the idea is expose students to all of that very young, prepare them a little bit during high school with CTE to understand better what are those different sectors like and what's it like to be in them. And then they are in a place where they can actually choose to do what we call launch, which is like a paid on-the-job, meaningful experience. So lots of lessons learned, but that idea of don't prescribe, but enable and support existing players in the field. And I know I've got a couple of regional networks on board today here, Sue Kane and Deb Bowen. I see you guys. I don't know if I missed somebody. Wayne Bridges is here. He's a program builder for us. There's just a huge amount of energy in across the state from folks like that to drive this work forward. So lots of really great momentum and enthusiasm, and lots more enrollments. We've grown about 16% per year of enrollments during the pandemic. So
that's amazing.
It is, yeah.
Does anyone else have a perspective on Career Connect Washington, and now that it's sort of up and in its infancy, but also really exciting time?
Yeah, I can just weigh in on a couple of the sort of strengths and really unique things that I see coming out of Career Connect Washington that I've seen other states or cities really learn from and draw from the example. There's a lot, but I guess two that I would highlight is, well, first, the language really matters. And Kenton, as you mentioned, like we have a lot of weird stigma in our country around the word apprenticeship and jobs in the trades, which again, as you mentioned, like those are some, there's some really good jobs in there. But I think we have some weird stigma around that. And I like to remind people that med school is an apprenticeship, right? You go to school for 2 years and then you work in a hospital under the supervision of an experienced doctor for 2 years. And like nobody in this country wants to be operated on a doctor who did not go through that apprenticeship. Law school is an apprenticeship. Architects go through an apprenticeship. Teachers go through an apprenticeship. So we have examples of apprenticeships sort of like across the spectrum from the trades and to sort of, the professions, but we don't tend to use the word apprenticeship to describe all of that. And we also are missing that kind of aligned classroom learning with meaningful work experience, like that learning experience which is an apprenticeship. We're missing that in what I think of as the mighty middle. Tech jobs, right? Lots of our healthcare jobs, lots of the great jobs of the future, right? And so one of the things I think that Career Connect Washington did so elegantly is to create a term, career launch, which encompasses that type of learning, right? And it encompasses the idea of apprenticeship, but not just things that are called apprenticeship. And I think that was a really elegant solution, which has been able to bring people along. The other thing I love about what is happening in Washington is the endorsement system. So the idea that there's a set of criteria that we've said, like, this is what a really great career launch program looks like, designed to that thing, and you get endorsed, right? And I think that it's a very clear way of driving change. And we've seen examples of, programs that existed that weren't quite designed with that, that structure in mind, and they made tweaks and changes to be able to get the endorsement. And that's a really, I think, interesting and effective way of helping to move along change. So those are two things that I know that other states and cities have really looked at and learned from the way Washington's going about this work.
Thank you, Abigail. And I want to take a minute too before I ask you a question, Kenton, just to remind those that are listening out there, that if you have questions you'd like us to engage in, please put your questions in the Q&A box, and as time allows, I'll try to look at those and bring them in. So please do that. But Kenton, now you've heard some about these programs and the work that's happened with Washington, with Career Connect Washington, and there's so many cool things happening. Is it enough for your kids? If you could have the magic ball of what you think your kids need that we don't have yet in terms of programs, what does that look like?
Wow. The crystal ball.
This is your chance.
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh boy, here we go. All right, get my piece of paper out. No, there's a lot of different opportunities out there. The biggest one sometimes for us as educators is the financial part of it, right? Taking a busload of kids to a facility costs money, right? Last year we were able to take our students to the Boeing Museum of Flight, right? And they got a chance to go out there and see that, and got a chance to have a little tour, which was awesome. And luckily, one of our other STEM teachers, Angie Jarvis, was able to get a lot of that paid for through a grant, right? And so they paid for a lot of that. But it kind of goes back to what you had asked a question about with mentors and stuff like that. One of the things that we've seen that we need more of, and that is mentors, students, or professionals that are willing to bring students along, right? Whether that be on site, or even if they can't make it on site, if they would be willing to come to the schools, right? And that's one of the biggest ways that we can actually expose more students to it. Because obviously with the busload of kids, we can take 53, right? But if we actually have somebody that came to the building, that increases it for us. That's 3,100 potential students that can hear that message as well. So that would be great. There in like Abby was talking about, and Mara was also talking about, there are some programs that are out there that we've been able to take advantage of. I saw Deb Bowen's on here as well. They have the STEM Like Me. We were fortunate enough to get that grant, and we were able to do a Rube Goldberg project with our students. They actually have some staff that are becoming to, let's see, today is Tuesday, so tomorrow they'll be coming to our building. No, not Thursday, coming to our building to talk to our students. It's a great opportunities, right? And so anything that we can do from an educator standpoint that can bring in those professionals so that those students can get exposed to those different professions is it's very valuable, very valuable.
Thank you, Kenton. And one thing I've heard from witnessing these STEM Like Me programs in the past is that, and sort of a plug to get employers more engaged, is, as you're working on when you see workers interacting with kids in the classroom and talking about their careers and the excitement that gets generated with kids, also that same excitement gets generated with the workers that are there, right? It's a way to engage your workforce and retain them, which is such a huge issue in today's world. And so it's a cool program because it's a bridge. It gets employers into the classrooms, and also works on facilitating your workforce retention as part of doing something that really matters in the lives of kids. And I do have a question here that is can we hear a bit more about the career connected endorsement and the recommended structure, what that looks like, and what programs particularly that are in place? Yeah, I'll just.
Yeah, I can jump in there and describe it. It's if you have a program today that is, close to career launch, let's just say that career launch being a paid on the job experience for young people aligned with a classroom experience that is designed to get you to the skills and competencies of a particular job. It has to provide at least a year's worth of college credit or
Whoops. Maud, I think you've just frozen a minute there. Abigail, while her technology's coming back online, can you supplement any of that?
Oh, I think I hear her. Is she
okay? Good, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, maybe I should go off camera if I'm fading out. So we have about 120 newly endorsed career launch programs, and these are programs that either we granted funding to them to build a program and they came through the endorsement process, or they were an existing program. We have some in the K-12 system. We have some in the community college system, far more in the community college system right now, where they said, hey, we've got everything here, but maybe we don't have as much employer connection as we'd like. That's when they can actually get help from the regional networks who I've mentioned. They're here, Deb and Sue being great examples. And they can actually help make those employer connections if needed, so that a community college can then strengthen their application to get through the endorsement process. Now, what's in it for them? It's always a good question. So why would an educator go to all that trouble when they got plenty of other things to do? The answer is there is some funding. There's funding. Once you build a program like this, a career launch program, you actually get essentially a per FTE stipend from the state for that program, which allows you to continue that program, to grow it, to keep it relevant, to continue to work with employers on it. And it sort of gives you the operating resources to invest again in that program and to keep it alive. So that's the way the funding works. It's the grants themselves to build a program are also very much available to anyone who wants to take the time to write the proposal. We try to make our proposal writing as hopefully non-cumbersome as possible. The regional networks do an awesome job of coaching people who want to build programs to actually be grantees. And we've awarded, I guess we're in the 10th round of funding now. So every 2 or 3 months, we're out funding new program builders. We have over 45 of those entities in the state that are really good at building programs, and they've gotten proficient, and they're pretty much across sectors of our economy now. But we're always board, do it. So it is a very open process. We've done special work to reach out to BIPOC program-led entities that could be program builders, and we have dramatically increased the percentage of BIPOC organizations taking that on because we want to make sure, as I said before, that we're reaching every student and not just some students. And we think there's special ways to actually speak the language and basically make sure that it's culturally based education where needed. So it's a lot of things, but that we have buckets of funding, very easy to find. We have a website, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great.
And we encourage anybody who gets excited by this call to be in touch with us, and we can help guide you. Or if you know your regional network leader on the call, give them a call because they can help with this too.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking at comments here, and my longtime dear friend Dee Gray just made a comment that I couldn't be more supportive of, and that's that she says, every large employer, especially in the Tri-Cities area, should have someone who can connect mentors when teachers ask. It's a win-win for both employers and students. And I just wanted to put that out there as plant a seed for those employers that don't have that yet. And And I couldn't support that more. And again, I've just seen so many times that it's as much as an engagement for your workforce as it is for making a difference in the life of kids when you have a program like that. And it's all about this Career Connect Washington is building that bridge, which isn't naturally built without all this effort. So thanks, Dee, for that comment. Kenton, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is that we talked a little bit about minorities and economically disadvantaged kids. And when you look at STEM careers particularly, often you see that females continue to be underrepresented in STEM fields. How can we utilize career or CTE fields such as robotics or computer science, or all the cool things that are fun to get female students more connected to post-high school STEM opportunities?
Yeah. So we've been actively, at our school, been pretty active in trying to recruit more female students into our STEM program. The reality is, for a lot of our kids, I teach robotics and CAD, both of which have that stigma that those are boy type of classes, right? And so I have a lot of males that sign up for the class. Last year, I guess 4 years ago, I was lucky enough to have a female. She was considered the minority in the class because there was only 5 of them total out of a class of 30 that took the robotics class. And her name was Kaylee. And she liked the class. She was interested in the class. And she ended up rotating into our STEM class, from just a robotics class into our STEM class. And then after her freshman year, she said, we need more females, to which we said, we do. And so she actually took it upon herself to start a club. We had a robotics and technology club, and she started a separate group called STEM is Fem. And the idea being that she wanted to go to the elementaries and talk to some of the elementary students, females in particular, about what kind of careers you can do in STEM. Because as she said, when she was growing up, that wasn't considered not necessarily a possibility, but it wasn't something that was really pushed, right? And so she said, I need to go back and talk to some of my younger siblings and into the elementaries. And so she started her own little group within our robotics and technology club, and ended up doing a summer outreach program with some of the K-8 students. And she ended up she went and brought in some professionals to come in and talk to the students. And she specifically asked to find females. So she had engineers that came out there. She had doctors that came out, and they did the first year they did it for a whole week. It was 4 hours. And then last year we did it for 1 day, and she just packed everything in there. It's big, right? For especially for minorities, and females are considered minorities in STEM. To get other persons that look like them, right? Whether that be female or male, or what have you, Hispanic, Black, having those connections. As much as I want to tell myself it doesn't matter, it does matter. It mattered with me, right? Because my first mentor that I had, my senior year when I put that application in, my mentor was Wayne Martin. He was another African American, and I saw him and I was like, oh, hey, hi. Didn't expect to see you. I mean, because I just didn't know. I hadn't seen anybody like that. And so, at least in that capacity. And so that kind of started for me, right? That was like, well, maybe I can do this, right? I mean, he did it. And he had his PhD, and so maybe I should go ahead and try and do it. And so when you can see people that represent you, right? Much like Tiger Woods with golf. I never golfed, right? But seeing him golf, and I was like, well, maybe I can do it. I used to watch it on TV. I'd turn the channel. This is boring. I don't want to watch it. He came on. I was like, maybe I'll go and try it. It wasn't very good, right? But I went and tried it, right? So whenever you can make those connections, right? I know you guys were talking about it before from the educator. I'm looking at it now with lens from an educator going to the workforce. But prior to that, it was the opposite way around. When you can talk to students, or you can bring in students to let them see what it is that you do, the more you can explain to them and give them an idea, just a general idea as to what it is, it's valuable, very valuable. I strongly urge people that have that are in that position, right, to being able to go out and talk to students or bring students in. It's valuable. Can I say one more thing? And then I'll quit. And that is this. When you're talking about retention, right? So here in the Tri-Cities, we have Hanford, and they usually end up getting a lot of people from out of the area that come and work here because we just don't have that. We don't have as much. Well, we do. We have students that are willing to do that, but a lot of them don't know about it. And so when they go off to college, they get their degree and then they move off somewhere else because they didn't even know about the opportunities that are there. I ended up going up to Pacific Northwest National Laboratory because I found out about it. And that's how I found out about it. And that's how I got in my senior year in high school. And then I came back. And then I came back, for the summers, for the internships, and then was able to get on full time. But had it not been for that opportunity, I would never have gone there. I lived here in Pasco my entire life. I had never been to Hanford, right? And it's 15 miles away, right? So one of the largest employer that we have in the Tri-Cities. Had never been there because my parents didn't work there and nobody I knew worked there. So there was no reason for me to ever go there.
Kenton, I'm going to take with me from this idea of you don't know what you don't know, right? The Career Connected Washington is all about that, right? To make a difference in life of kids when they make choices so that they have opportunities for the best choices. And what you described in the Mid-Columbia is similar, Maud, to what you described in the state of Washington, that, jobs are good paying future focused jobs are sometimes going to people that are not from Washington or not from the Mid-Columbia. And so how do we make sure that our kids are in line for those great jobs? We just have a few minutes left. So I just want to open it up to all of you to see if you have a particular comment you hasn't been made yet and you want to make sure that someone walks away with when they think about what is Career Connect Washington. Everybody's quiet.
While people are thinking, Vicki, I'd just like to mention that we have just been the recipient of 2 big federal grant awards that will
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. And I hope it's exciting, again, for people across the state of Washington, because this fuels our ability to fund others to do this great work, to build these pathways, support students that need support in any way to participate in these opportunities. So there's a lot of wraparound support funding in this package as well. And it's really designed to help us build out and scale a complete system in every sector of our economy across every part of the state. And we have some work underway to design, like what does that need to look like based on what's been built thus far. So again, same model of how we go about building is in partnership with those on the ground, closest to the students, closest to the employers, but providing them with enough support that they can do this work. So hoping some of you are on the call today and will see these. It's called the Good Jobs Challenge Grant funding, and it should look like no other, like all the other funding we've got. It doesn't matter if it's federal or state or whatever. It's just designed to help get these programs in place for young people. So hope we can see some of you actively jump in. Be great.
Thanks, Maud, for that and for all your work. Abby, any parting comments you want to leave?
Yeah, I guess I would just jump in and say that, again, the reason we're here and talking about this is because we're living through this period of massive disruption, and we're part of this big change in how people learn and prepare themselves for high promise opportunities. And it's really exciting, but it's also scary, right? Because it's shifting what we're used to and shifting how we do things. And it requires change from, all the players in the system. It requires change from our K-12 partners, from our higher education partners. It requires change from our employers in how they engage. What we like to say at Bain is that our employers today are, they're takers as opposed to makers of talent takers as opposed to talent makers. And so, that's a lot of change, and it requires change from, what governments are willing to do and how intermediaries play into that too. So it's a massive change. And again, that's exciting. And it's also unsettling, and it's scary. And what I would say is that, again, I feel really lucky that I get to look across the country and really across the globe and see what's happening in various places. And there's a lot of really exciting things happening. I think there's a lot of momentum, and people are going about this in different ways, and we're going to be able to learn from that. But I would just say that, the state of Washington is on the cutting edge of this, and what you guys are doing is really exciting, and a lot of people are watching and looking and learning from what you're doing. And I just hope you're really proud of that, because again, you're part of a big change, and that's exciting, and it causes some shivers. But people are watching and learning, and I hope you all feel that.
Thanks, Abby, and thanks for your continued work and feeding lessons learned into Maude and the rest of Career Connect Washington. And I'm at the end of my time, but I would be remiss if I didn't let Kenton get in one last thing that you want to impart to us.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to hear about the financial assistance for some of these things, because it is a barrier for us, for educators, right? We have a limited amount, so it's great to hear that there was those opportunities. But for me, again, it's just making sure that we have some mentors, and again, those mentors can take a lot of different. They can look different, right, as far as what that looks like, whether it be individuals or groups of people. But having them being able to tie those back into with our students, starting as early as, I'm in high school, so obviously I'm kind of focused more on the high school, but it's never too early, right? You can start even in the middle schools, start talking to those students and kind of letting them know about some of the opportunities that are out there, and then trying to make sure we lower those barriers for those students that just don't have the access, and make sure that they can get that as easily as possible. Would be greatly appreciated by them, and by us as educators as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Maude, Abby, and Kenton for being with us today. Your skills are and information I could talk to you all day long, but I've learned a lot, and I look forward to continually collaborating with you in the future. And unfortunately, our time is up. What a wonderful discussion. We'll have a 10-minute break now and return for our last session at 2 p.m. called Grant Opportunities. This is how you get the money, I guess, is learning a little bit about Career Connect Washington's Program Builder Workshop. So again, thank you so much for your time. It was great to meet you all.